So here we are back again talking about adventure design, the theory of adventure design. So I have in front of me what I filled out last time, my version 5, my adventure template. I walked through and that was a cruddy adventure writing session, but it was quick and we got something here. We'll call this an adventure with one, kind of two encounters planned. Should have a little more than that for sure, but bare bones. But as far as theory goes, from what I've been thinking about over the decades and changing my ways of running adventures, by no means do I have the monopoly on how to properly run a good adventure. I'm still learning. It's a process. And views change. My views may change in a week or two. But these days, I mostly have settled on the pillars of adventure. Now, people say, every adventure needs exploration, social combat. I guess I agree. I do agree that a little bit of exploration, less so than the others, but yeah, exploration, that's just personal preference, I suppose. Social and combat, it all needs to happen in your adventure. But for me, just knowing that does not actually help me write a decent adventure. I need like a template such as this to help prompt me to fulfill those via other mechanisms. For instance, when we wrote this out, what's some exploration part is the ruins, just the fact that we have kind of the ruins and the deadwood. I guess the idea of exploring the relationships between these two areas and what else we can find there. As an improv, kind of for the most part GM, I would be trying to, on the fly, make up interesting descriptions of these places, at least to fulfill that exploration need in some players. Also dropping hints, leaving loose threads for information for later. They know once they come into this ruins that it's maybe infested with monsters, and it hasn't been picked clean. There's potentially, through their efforts of traveling through the ruin and their exploration of it a bit, they realize that if they can come back later when they're not on this current mission, they can do some exploration further and archaeology, find some pre-riffs, materials, valuables, stuff like that. So I think I am happy with how the template is fulfilling these three so far, until I come up with a better way to do it. Combat, yeah, that was easy. My encounters kind of go to combat first and foremost in my head. And then, as you see, depending on your characters, like the skilled character classes, they're not combatants, started using their skills more. The social pillar would come in. I always try to have a third party, faction, entity, whatever, who are not necessarily for or against the PCs to begin with. That's where the social will always come in, unless the characters just want to blaze guns and go right into combat, which is fine. That tells me that they don't care for social, and we don't need that pillar. As far as adventure design theory, good old Professor Dungeon Master, once in a while I follow his videos, and he had his main points for an adventure. You got to have conflict or a plot. You have to have a villain. You need a MacGuffin and a good location. Now again, for me, when I'm writing an adventure, I agree that you need those things, but just having that list isn't enough for me. It's hard for me to come up with just a cool location, just off the top of my head, something that's playable and interesting. I can think of maybe a waterfall scene in a jungle with maybe some ruined power armor buried in, I don't know, but what the location needs to serve the action, in my view. So just having a cool location gets us nowhere. So spending time just trying to dream up a location in and of itself does not help me really. So I prefer to do it this way. As we came into our location, we've got deadwood off the top of my head that kind of hints to some interesting attributes of that woods, and the ruins already, just because we did the resource for this faction having a ley line. So now we've got an interesting location. We've got ruins with a ley line passing through, and we've got a underground kind of, yeah, it's probably underground, I guess we went over, because it's being guarded by the cyborg ogre. So there's some locations already, and I didn't have to try. The location services it's just support to the villain and his plans. So that takes care of the villain and the conflict or plot. Not really a plot. We don't want to write a plot. We just kind of want to stay away from railroading players through our little preconceived plots. It's just trying to provide a conflict here. Just kind of a goal, an aspiration. Just a villain with a goal. That's it. MacGuffins are fun. I do like MacGuffins, but again, just always forcing a MacGuffin, I think it's better to come about naturally, organically, in service of the villain and his goal. So here we had, do we have a MacGuffin? Oh, it's kind of the find the power cell, which I didn't tie in yet, but somehow maybe he's using it. So I guess the MacGuffin would be the power cell. So we did kind of come up with one, I guess, a MacGuffin. Another MacGuffin might be the magic item? No, not really. So yes and no, MacGuffins are fun, not required for a good adventure. Something interesting to slip in, for sure, to spice things up. Location, we dealt with that. So I like to add, so conflict, great. You gotta have MacGuffin, sure, okay, sure. Villain and a location. I like to add two more aspects to adventure design theory, and those are twist, need a good twist, and a third party. I like there to always be a third party. Maybe if it gets too samey, every adventure, characters find a new third party, you know. That's not really what you want, but somebody who can kind of come in and act as a third party or kind of be neutral. You don't have to always use it, but I like having them planned. Like in this case, it was the Scabbers. In this case, actually, they are related to they're tied to the villain and his goal by the twist, so they're not really so optional. I would have to have Psy Stalkers, say. We'll say Psy Stalkers is another group. Oh, or actually Coalition. How about the CS? I love using them as a third party. They're great, heavy-handed approach. They come in shooting. Whoever's there gets shot up. I love that kind of third party entity, especially if they show up while the characters are already in the middle of an encounter. But that's a Rift specific trope. Let's write that up here. Coalition. I love that trope of Rifts. Coalition serves so many different roles and tropes in this setting. So that's a little bit of overview speaking to how I created this adventure template to address the adventure theory of what I consider a good adventure design. And last but not least, there's one other thing that I wanted to touch on, make sure that this template prompts me, helps remind me to hit one more aspect, which is a character spotlight. Every character should have a little bit of time in the spotlight where they get to shine, where their character and maybe their character only is the one to get them out of a tight jam, or save the day, or at least be unique and be useful, uniquely useful in some way. And that can be hard in Rifts. You have such a wide span and quote power capability, combat capability in characters, and utility of characters. Like the Glitter Boy, his utility is maybe pretty low, whereas a techie can fix just about anything, or say a magic user, once they get a lot of spells, they can be pretty great at solving a lot of different issues. They can be good at combat, they can be good at utilitarian, they can be good at social stuff even, with influence spells. But the Glitter Boy is always just a tank, a walking tank. So Rifts, I figure if this game template, adventure template, can help me get decent adventures written for Rifts game, then it'll work for other games, because this is a challenging game. Game Masters, if you're running Rifts, successful Rifts games, my hat off to you, because for me, this is the toughest system. But that's what it's all about, pushing ourselves. So how do we deal with Spotlight here? It's all about this whole section here, the encounter matrix. This, I think, is my favorite part of this entire time. I do like these clocks, built-in conflict faction clocks, but this is gonna be good. This is really gonna make my encounters memorable, I hope. I hope. Not fully tested yet, so take this with a grain of salt. But the idea of having the ability to just lay out all the PCs and what they're gonna face, what their challenge is each encounter. Because in Rifts, the big guys are gonna slug it out with the big guys. They're not gonna bother mowing down the small guys. They're gonna handle the big threat right away. So it works. I think it will work in Rifts. While the big guys are duking it out, in this case the Cyborg Ogre and the Glitter Boy in a tight room, the City Rat, for instance, is going to be trying to hack / pick the lock or sneak around and bypass the security somehow, so they can just leave the room, perhaps leave the bad guys behind them. The Coalition Techie officer will be trying to take over a sentry, an automated sentry gun. I see that being kind of fun. That thing will just be able to just pound away on the Glitter Boy. It'll just focus on him because he'd be the biggest radar signature. So these smaller, the soft targets, as I like to call them, the human-sized guys, won't have to deal with that. But the Glitter Boy will be in trouble if he's duking it out with a Cyborg Ogre and getting rained upon by a sentry gun. I think that could be a really fun encounter. I gotta use that. I'm gonna have to play through this for reals. So that handles the spotlight, the character spotlight. Have I missed anything? Probably not, but probably. But off the top of my head, that's all I can think of. These are the things that I try to put into my adventures, and this template makes sure that I don't leave them out. Future videos, if I think of other things that I need, I will probably make updates. This is a work in progress template, but right now it's working really great for me so far. So far so good. Gonna run some adventures with some impromptu groups. I'm gonna try and gather and fully test this out. No GM plans. Survive the encounter with players, they say. Feel free to take a look at the adventure template PDF download link is in the description. Download it, try it out for free. Feel free to donate a couple bucks if it's of use to you. Thanks a lot. Roll on.